Welcome to everyone. Today we're joined by Elizabeth Jones, Managing Director at WithPR, communication partner company from the UK. Please, Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I'm Lizzie. I'm the MD of With, and as you say, we're a strategic corporate and tech communications agency based in London. We're also one of the founding members of the With Global Alliance. Our practice and our day-to-day work sees us working with a variety of different businesses, from NASDAQ-listed multinational businesses right through to punchy startups across the tech and corporate comms space. So very excited to be here and to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Lucy. WithPR is a part of a program managed by PrivacyRules, which focuses on crisis communication as an integral aspect of cyber crisis in general, and so as a complementary discipline to data protection law and also cybersecurity. Now, without further ado, I will start with our first question to you. Why PR and communication are integral aspects of nowadays businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So PR and the wider concept of good communications is so important to businesses today, particularly with those dealing with sensitive levels of data, information, IP. Not simply just because of the sensitivity of that information. There's this broader importance as well to explain how they run a company well, to demonstrate that they are a good member of the community and increasingly a really good employer. So communications for businesses is not just about how a product sells, for instance. It never really has been, although that's been the preoccupation. I think it's becoming more apparent by the day to kind of businesses across the world, particularly big businesses, particularly those in tech, that those other considerations, their employer brand, their impact on ESG, those types of considerations are increasingly rising to the top of the priority list. One of the things that we've recently been looking at is a barometer of trust, which is based on feedback and insights from employees. 60% of employees want their CEOs to speak on issues that they care about. And over half of professionals say that an executive's presence on social media is one of the most influential pieces of how they go about deciding to buy from a company or partner with a company or work for a company. And it's that kind of consideration that businesses really need to take into account at the moment. On the more privacy and data sensitivity side of things, even in the last few weeks, we've seen news from around the world of how businesses being put in the spotlight for failings around privacy really does influence our perspectives and how we feel about those kinds of companies. There's the fairly famous now cyber attack on the Australian telco Optus, all around kind of mismanagement of data. Big legal case with Morgan Stanley, who lost physical hard drives, which turned up on an auction site with over 15 million private wealth customers' data on them. Uber's former security officer, Joe Sullivan, is on trial. I think the first case of an executive facing criminal charges in relation to a data breach. And so the communications around all of these kinds of issues and incidents has been really fundamental to the ongoing reputation of these kinds of businesses.
Thank you so much. And on this last point, if you could elaborate on how does communication support companies in privacy-related matters?
Absolutely. So from press releases through to thought leadership, through to interviews on TV and radio, LinkedIn profiles, social footprints, there's a real need for consistency in both the good times and the bad times. Fundamentally, those businesses and indeed the leaders of those companies who have established their character, for want of a better word, in the good times and have demonstrated the type of business that they are, have often laid really important foundations that will set them in very good stead should an issue or a crisis arise further down the line. Some of the principles that we often encourage with our clients when it comes to ensuring that your communications really do support the business through privacy-related matters come to a kind of series of guiding principles, if you like, and we kind of list them by four key C's. The first is control, so helping clients to understand where the weak links are or the potential gaps are that could become a comms issue is something that we often do. Having a full grasp of these and then confidently being able to communicate with a plan of action around them should anything go awry is so, so important. The second C is clarity, no jargon, and kind of communicating what you do on a day-to-day basis or what might have gone wrong in a really clear and simple way is so important. When we're in a tight spot or perhaps kind of navigating a sensitive conversation, it's so common and so easy to seize up and to revert to really complex language to obfuscate and try and avoid the question. And actually, that has the opposite effect that we want to have with the audiences that we're speaking to. So being open and transparent as you can be on an issue with natural language is 10 times more likely to get you the response that you need and to resonate with those audiences. The fourth C is compassion, particularly in instances where things haven't gone right. Demonstrating a real understanding of the impact of that crisis on your end audience is so important. Showing you care is such a vital element to brand equity. And then the last piece of that fourth C is competence. Knowing your responsibilities in regulatory compliance, in the ecosystem, and the impact that you may or may not be having when something goes wrong, through to what it's going to take for you to make things right with your customers or your stakeholders, is one of those pieces that can immediately switch an audience to trust that you're going to fix a situation. Showing your competence in those kind of scenarios is so vital. An example, if I may, slightly different privacy issue this time, rather than the leak of customer data. In this instance, the loss of IP due to a data breach. For the gamers amongst us, the online leak of footage from the anticipated next installment of Grand Theft Auto, GTA, the computer game, there was a fairly sizable breach, probably the biggest in the sector's history. Rockstar Games, the Take-Two interactive studio that makes the popular franchise, confirmed that it did have a network intrusion, language that they used, and said it was extremely disappointed that players would have prematurely seen aspects of the upcoming release. In that instance, obviously no personal data has been impacted, so it's not the customer, but the overall impact of that launch, that hotly anticipated launch of a really exciting new product, completely diluted, meant that the impact, the buzz, the build-up, the excitement, and the eventual go live of that new game to market was dampened somewhat, and probably did have an impact commercially as well. So it's that kind of thing where, in that instance, those 4 C's can be really, really important to demonstrate your understanding of the situation and communicating it with your audiences.
Thank you so much. Very clear, and also for this practical example. That leads me to the last question. You mentioned the 4 C's, but I would ask you, what are the 3 main services that communication experts can bring to companies dealing with a lot of data?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question. Almost endless, maybe, how long is a piece of string. But if you instead perhaps think about PR services and communication services in a triangle of services, at the base of that triangle, you've got that foundation, that base of strategic advice, that messaging work, that positioning work, establishing who your leaders are, what they stand for, what your business USPs are, and how you go about your day-to-day as an organization that puts you in a very particular space in the industry. That kind of foundational work is so, so important so that you have that rock in good times and in bad. So that would be the first principle. The second area, and kind of the middle layer of that triangle, is the end-to-end package from prep to recovery when it comes to incidents. So toolkits, including scenarios and in situ drills and demos, crisis management with sort of senior stakeholders on hand to give that guidance to the leadership team, right through to recovery, the immediate actions that allow you to resume day-to-day activities whilst not just ignoring that the incident has happened. That kind of middle layer of being prepared and having the plan up your sleeve should something go wrong, and then working through it in a systematic way is kind of the second key area, particularly for privacy. And then I think the third layer and kind of the tip of that triangle is kind of what needs to happen longer term, that bigger strategic recommendation on brand reputation, thinking about corporate reputation initiatives from employer branding, so how you communicate to potential employees about who you are as a business and why you're a fantastic place to work, through to analysts, the likes of Forresters and Gartners of this world, who have such influence on opinion, and right through to investor relationships as well. IR is certainly something that builds into that longer strategic plan at the top of the triangle. So I think there's almost 3 levels, all of which can be really, really fundamental for businesses in this space to get right.
Easy. Big thanks to you and to With PR. Thank you, the audience, for following us, and we'll see you in the next Privacy Espresso.